Today I am going to recite Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Sarjan, Creation, Chapter 2, Divyata, and Divine Seva, Divinity and Divine Service, verses 18 to 34. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Verse 18. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttam sloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki.
Translation. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
Tadarajas pavoho kamalo pa the kamalo padayaschaye Chet etera vidvam sthitam sattve prasidati.
Translation. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy.
Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogatah bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate.
Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association.
Vidyate hridaya grantihi chidyante sarva sanshayah shiyante chasya karmani drashta evatmanisvare.
Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master.
Ataha vei kavayah nityam bhaktim paramayamudha vasudeve bhagavati kurvanti atma prasadanim.
Certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, with great delight, because such devotional service is enlivening to the self.
Tattvam rajastamas iti prakrutehi gunastehi yuktah paraha purusha eka ihasya tate sthiti adaye harihi viranchi harihi iti sangyaha shreyamsi tatra khalu sattvatano nunashyuhu.
The transcendental personality of Godhead is indirectly associated with the three modes of material nature, namely passion, goodness, and ignorance. And just for the material world's creation, maintenance, and destruction, he accepts the three qualitative forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Of these three, all human beings can derive ultimate benefit from Vishnu, the form of the quality of goodness.
Parthivat arunah tumaha tasmat अग्निस्त्रयीमयः तमसस्तु रजस्तस्मात् सत्त्वं यत्प्रमदर्शनम्.
Firewood is a transformation of earth, but smoke is better than the raw wood, and fire is still better. For by fire we can derive the benefits of superior knowledge through Vedic sacrifices. Similarly, passion, rajas, is better than ignorance, tamas, but goodness, sattva, is best because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth.
हेजिरे मुनयो अथाग्रे भगवन्तम् अधोक्षजन् सत्त्वं विशुद्धं क्षेमाय कल्पन्ते येष्णुतानिह.
Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the personality of Godhead due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. They worshipped him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world.
मुमुक्षवो घोररूपान् हित्वा भूतपतिनथ नारायणकलः शान्ता भजन्ते ह्यनसूयवः.
Those who are serious about liberation are certainly non-envious, and they respect all. Yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods and worship only the all-blissful forms of Lord Vishnu and his plenary portions.
रजस्तमः प्रकृतयः समशीला भजन्ति वै पितृभुज भूतप्रचेशादीन् श्रियैश्वर्यप्रचेप्सदः.
Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance worship those in the same category, namely the forefathers, other living beings, and the demigods who are in charge of cosmic activities, for they are urged by a desire to be materially benefited with women, wealth, power, and progeny.
वासुदेव परा वेदा वासुदेव परामखः वासुदेव परा योगा वासुदेव परः क्रिया वासुदेव परं ज्ञानं वासुदेव परं तपः वासुदेव परो धर्मो वासुदेव परा गतिः.
In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know him. Religion, dharma, is rendering loving service unto him. He is the supreme goal of life.
स एवेदं ससर्जाग्रे भगवन् आत्ममायया सत् असत् उपयाचासौ गुणमया गुणो विभुः.
In the beginning of the material creation, that absolute personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, in his transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy.
तया विलसितेषु एषु गुणेषु गुणवानिव अन्तः प्रवेश्य आभाति विज्ञानेन विजृम्भति.
After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position.
Yatha hi avitaha vahanihi darushu ekah svayonishu naneda bhati vishvatma bhuteshu cha tatha puman.
The Lord as Supersoul pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood, and so he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute one without a second.
Aso gunamayehi bhavehi bhuta sukshmandriya atmabhihi Swanirmiteshu nilvishtu bhunte bhuteshu tatgunan.
The Supersoul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of those modes by the subtle mind.
Avayati eshah sattven lokan ve loka bhavanaha Leelavatara deva tiryakanaradishu.
Thus, the Lord of the universes maintains all planets inhabited by demigods, men, and lower animals. Assuming the roles of incarnations, he performs pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear Mataji. Wonderful recitation. Just bear with me for 1 minute. I want to just copy something and paste it. Hare Krishna. Okay. So stop sharing. Welcome, dear devotees, to today's session. Because I was busy this week, I swapped Mondays with Thursdays with Manu Prabhu. I'm grateful for him to facilitate my service in that way. So today we'll continue reading chapter 2 of the first canto. And the chapter is entitled Divinity and Divine Service. And we are reading text number 32 when we're discussing 32. I do apologize. I saw yesterday Divya Gaurangi Mataji, she made such beautiful slides and she had so many nice verses. I am running a bit short of time. I didn't do that, so I do apologize. So just let me check whether you can see the screen. Okay, text number 32. Before we do that, let's recite the Mangala Charanam prayers. You can also join me. We unmuted mics. Om Jnanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jigatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhe Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasticha Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Text number 32. Yatahi avahito varni darushu ekaha swa yonishu naneva bhakti vishvatma bhuteshu cha tatha puman. So the word for word translation. Yata, as much as, he, exactly like, avaitaha, surcharged with, vani, fire, darushu, in wood, ekaha, one, swayonishu, the source of manifestation, nana hiva, like different living, like different entities, bhati, illuminates, vishvatma, the Lord as Paramatma, bhuteshu, in the living entities, cha, and tata, in the same way, puman, the absolute person. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Lord, as Supersoul, pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood, and so he appears to be of many varieties, although he is the absolute one without a second. Purport. Lord Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by one of his plenary parts expands himself all over the material world. And his existence can be perceived even within the atomic energy. Matter, antimatter, proton, neutron, etc. are all different effects of the Paramatma feature of the Lord. As from wood, fire can be manifested, whereas butter can be churned out of milk, so also the presence of the Lord as Paramatma can be felt by the process of legitimate hearing and chanting of the transcendental subjects, which are especially treated in the Vedic literatures like the Upanishads and Vedanta. Srimad Bhagavatam is the bona fide explanation of these literatures. The Lord can be realized through the oral reception of the transcendental message, and that is the only way to experience the transcendental subject. As fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness of man can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. His divine grace, the spiritual master, can kindle the spiritual fire from the wood-like living entity by imparting proper spiritual messages injected through the receptive ear. Therefore, one is required to approach the proper spiritual master with receptive ears only, and thus divine existence is gradually realized. The difference between animal animality, and humanity lies in this process only. A human being can hear properly, whereas an animal cannot. So the verse again. The Lord is Supersoul, pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood, and so he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute without a second. So this verses from, let's see, from 30 to 33, and we are reading 32 today, is Sutta Goswami answering the fourth question that the sages of Naimisharanya asked. So we recall from our previous study that the sages, they asked Sutta Goswami 6 questions. And the fourth question was, I'm not sure if anyone who can remember, the fourth question. I'll put it up on the board here, or on the screen. Let me do that. Share the screen. So this is the fourth question that the sages asked Sutta Goswami. And I'm sure, I think Mukunda Hari Prabhu and Divya Gaurangi Mataji would have covered this, but it's good to hear again. Tasya karmani udharani parigitani suribihi bruhi na shradadannanam lilaya dadata kalaha. So the sages said to Sutta Goswami, his transcendental acts are magnificent and gracious, and great learned sages like Narada sing of them. Please therefore speak to us who are eager to hear about the adventures he performs in his various incarnations. So the sages were very eager to hear about the Lord's incarnations. And they had actually said, Srila Jiva Goswami, he explains that in the first instance, they wanted to hear about the Purusha avatars. So the Purusha avatars are the Lord's incarnations in relations to the material world, creation, and so on. So the sages were very eager to hear about the Purusha avatars. And yesterday, Divya Gaurangi Mataji gave a very nice explanation about the various Purusha avatars, which we shall discuss a bit more. She also briefly spoke about the importance. Now, this is quite significant. We observe from the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya. And we also observe a very, very similar questions from Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj had only 7 days to live. And one may think that with so little time, he would have immediately wanted to jump to the Leela avatars of the Lord, and especially about Lord Krishna's pastimes. But that is not the case, as we see demonstrated both by the sages of Naimisharanya requesting Sutta Goswami. We see something very similar with Parikshit Maharaj questioning or opposing his questions to Sutta Goswami. So in the second canto, the 4th chapter, which is entitled The Process of Creation, Maharaj Parikshit asks, how many questions? I think it was 4 verses. He asked various questions to Sutta Goswami, Sukadeva Goswami. And the first question he asks is, how does the Lord create, maintain, and destroy this universe? How does he enact primary and secondary creations? And that's 2:4, verses 6 and 7. And then he says, the Lord's activities are wonderful and inconceivable. And in text number 9, how does he expand himself? So we see this. Now, sometimes we may have the tendency, when we come to the aspects of creation, or we sit in a class where, the speaker is describing the Purusha avatars, we may have a tendency to switch off or not to be so focused on these descriptions. And we will be making a mistake if we do so. I would like to share with you a nice narrative from the book Bhagavat Subhodhini, where it is explained the importance. And Divya Gaurangi Mataji, she explained that yesterday in the context of seeing the Supersoul within the heart of all living entities. I'll just like to read to you two important extracts. The first two cantos of the Bhagavatam give very vivid details of universal creation, particularly the second canto. Its descriptions of the creation, which is called Shrishti, help us appreciate how, without the Supreme Lord's hand, at every stage, creation is just not possible. This is more clearly explained in the third canto. In short, as the universe begins expanding and further manifest, the Lord's expansions also seem to be appearing along with it. In fact, it is because of the Lord's incarnations as the Purusha avatars that the cosmic world is progressing through the subsequent stages of creation, and not the other way around. Just as the presence of the soul within the body enables the body to live and grow, similarly, the presence of the supersouls, and actually Bhagavatam refers to 3 types of supersouls, which we'll talk about. The presence of the supersouls allows the entire material creation, each universe, and finally every living atom, being or atom to continually exist. And this is coming back to the verse. Thus, the following are some characteristics of the supersouls that sustain the material creation at every stage of its development and maintenance. And this is a quotation from Srila Prabhupada. It's a beautiful quotation. It's very relevant. The Lord's pastimes in the internal potency are displayed in his activities in Vrindavan. And most of us very much want to go to the pastimes of the internal potency. But his external potential works are directed in his features as Karano Dakshayi Vishnu, Garbo Dakshayi Vishnu, and Shiro Dakshayi Vishnu. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti offers his good counsel to the interested Vaishnavas when he says that they should not be interested in hearing only about the Lord's activities like Rasa Leela, but must be keenly, and I repeat, must be keenly interested in his activities, in his feature of the Purusha avatars in connection with Shrishti Tattva, creational functions, following the examples of Maharaj Parikshit, the ideal disciple, and Shukadev Goswami, the ideal spiritual master. So we follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans. And we are seeing from the Mahajans, they have a keen interest. Because this keen interest in understanding the Purusha avatars, it lays the foundations for us when we come to the Leela activities of the Lord, for us not to misunderstand it. So these are very important verses. And in this verse, so yesterday I think it was Divya Gaurangi Mataji was explaining that they are the 3 types of super souls. And I'll just quickly revise and refresh. So the first one is, who can remember? The first Purusha avatar is who?
Vishnu.
Mahavishnu.
Karanadakshayi Vishnu. Yes? So he is also known as Mahavishnu. And that is the first Purusha avatar. And he is the source of all the material ingredients. And where is this Purusha avatar located? He is located on the waters of the causal ocean, also known as Karana Jal. And what are the activities of this Karanadakshayi Vishnu or Mahavishnu? Through his breathing, innumerable universes are manifested. And when he breathes out, they are manifested. And when he breathes in, they're all withdrawn. And by his glands, he agitates the Mahatattva, and then the three modes get manifested. So within each of these universes, the next Purusha avatar is Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. So he's the second expansion, and he's the source of creation within the material universe. And we know he's the primary creator. From his navel, the lotus stem appears, Lord Brahma appears on the lotus, and he's the secondary creator. And he lies down in Yoga Nidra on the serpent-like Shesha incarnation. So this is Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. And the third Supersoul is Shirodakshayi Vishnu. And he's the Supersoul. And this verse is now talking about Shirodakshayi Vishnu. Shirodakshayi Vishnu. When I was, I didn't have much time to prepare for today's lesson. So I just was thinking to myself, and I was listening to Divya Gaurangi Mataji's class from yesterday, and I was thinking, both Mukunda Hari, Prabhu, and Divya Gaurangi Mataji have explained everything so nicely. So what will I be able? What will I talk on? And then I remembered this verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, spoken by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, where he says, Krishna Tulya Bhagavata Vibhu Sarvasraya Pratishloke Prati Akshare Nana Artakaya. Srimad Bhagavatam is as great as Krishna, the Supreme Lord and shelter of everything. In each and every verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, and in each and every syllable, there are various meanings. And so every word of the Bhagavatam has multiple and deep meanings. And I was also thinking about one pastime of Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. One Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur proposed to one printer that they will print one magazine every day. Every day they will print one spiritual magazine. So the printer said, Maharaj, what will you say every day you're going to print? What will you put in this magazine? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, this material world is so limited, and its activities are all dry and not at all pleasing to the ear. The spiritual world is unlimited, and the Lord's Leela is unlimited. So why can't we, or why won't we be able to print daily some activities of the spiritual world? So this is a very nice meditation. It's very nice meditation. So we will, I'm just thinking, okay, I'll come back to this, one of the slides. Let me go back to the verse. It's very relevant. say a few things about the purport. So in the verse itself, it says, the Lord as Supersoul pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood, and so he appears to have many varieties, though he is the absolute one without the second. So as the feature of Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, the third expansion of the third Supersoul, this feature of the Purusha avatar is two features. One is the all-pervading nature, where the Lord pervades every aspect of the material world. And Prabhupada explains there how the Lord is present in every single atom. Every single atom, that is, the smallest particles in this material world is the atom. And in the atom, you get neutrons and protons. And Prabhupada explains here that the Supersoul is within every atom. So that will give us some idea of how expansive the Lord is. In one class, when Srila Prabhupada gave on this verse in Vrindavan, Prabhupada was explaining that how the Lord is present in every atom. And just like the first verse we studied in the Bhagavatam, it mentions that the Lord is fully cognizant of everything that happens. And in one class, Prabhupada says, there may be an owner and he has many factories. But at best, the owner may be only cognizant of what's happening in one factory. But the Lord is so potent, so unlimitedly potent, by his manifestation of Kshirodakshaya Vishnu in every atom. He is cognizant of everything that's happening at any point in time in all of his creation. And that can be the only understanding of fully cognizant. Only someone who is present everywhere can they be deemed to be fully cognizant. And via his feature of the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who permeates everything, we can understand the Lord's being all cognizant. And the second feature of this Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, the Paramatma feature, is that he's sitting within the heart of all living entities. As Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, that he accompanies or is accompanying the living entities in all their movement. And yesterday, Divya Gaurangi Mataji spoke nicely about this, and she had a nice slide. So I won't cover it, but I want to, in the remaining time we have, I want to speak about something very specific in this purport, which I found very, very interesting and very relevant to ourselves. It's our tendency, normally, to consider that the Lord is very far away from us. We don't have this natural inclination to understand how close the Lord is to us. But this verse is giving us insights into how Krishna is so close to us. He's sitting within our heart, he's within every atom within our body, is within every atom that's close to us. And actually, there can be no one more close to us than the Lord. If we just think about people who we consider to be close to us, we may be in their proximity for some time, but we may also be out of their proximity for some considerable amount of time. But with Krishna, as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, as the third Supersoul, he is with us all the time, constantly. But somehow or the other, this realization normally escapes us. We do not normally think that Krishna is with us all the time. In the purport, Prabhupada explains very nicely how we can come to the point of realizing this aspect of the Lord. Recently, in one Bhagavatam class in the temple, this point was being discussed. And His Grace Sutapa Prabhu raised a very nice question in the class. And his question was, we always, when we meditate on the Lord, we think about Krishna in Vrindavan. But yet, the Lord is so close to us, and we do not meditate, and we do not seem to have a relationship with the Supersoul. So he asked the speaker, so how can we develop our relationship with the Supersoul who is with us all the time? Because when we have this recognition and we have this realization, then we never feel alone. We'll never feel alone. And we'll always have this feeling that our well-wisher is always with us. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is described as Surit. And Surit means well-wisher. Now, we may think that we have different well-wishers, people that are thinking of our goodwill at different stages and at different times of our life. But is there someone, a well-wisher, who is thinking of our goodwill at every moment? That's hard to find such a person. But Krishna is described as that. He is known as Surit, our well-wisher who is thinking of us all the time. So coming back to the point, Srila Prabhupada makes a very important point in this purport, and that is, how do we come to this realization of the Supersoul being with us? And Prabhupada says, the Lord can be realized through the oral reception of the transcendental message. And that is the only way to experience the transcendental subject. And then Prabhupada gives the metaphor. As fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. So it's explained just like fire is already there in wood, or butter is already there in milk. It only needs to be brought out. So in the same way, this divine consciousness of perceiving the Lord, one can do it via the Astanga Yoga process, which Srila Sukadeva Goswami describes very elaboratively in the second canto. But he says the supreme process to realize the Supersoul is through Bhakti Yoga. And the main process in Bhakti Yoga is Shravanam, hearing. And Prabhupada says here, by oral reception of the transcendental message, that is the only way to experience the transcendent subject. As fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness of man can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. His divine grace, the spiritual master. So by constantly hearing, this year, Prabhupada says, is very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Simply by the process of hearing constantly. Literatures like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, we will be able to, at all stages of our life, perceive the Supersoul. And Prabhupada says, this is all we need to do. We need to approach the proper spiritual master with receptive ears only. And thus divine existence is gradually realized. The more and more, the more we give oral reception to the messages of Krishna, the more and more the realizations of the Lord will come. And Prabhupada finally makes this distinctions between animals and human beings. You can put the animal in a situation, and you can put a human being in a situation. And both of them can be exposed to constant Krishna Katha. The animal will not get the gradual realization. But the human being, just by allowing his ear to hear this transcendental message, all realization will come. So therefore, the human life is considered to be so valuable, so precious. And as Shukadev Goswami says, any human being that does not lend his ear to constant oral reception, his ear holes are just like the snake holes, just like the snake holes. I was listening to a class the other day when I was doing a puja, and Prabhupada was talking about how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to the Jarikanda forest, he was so powerful that he even made the animals become realized. And Prabhupada says, very humbly, but we are not so powerful. So this is a very relevant question. We will see through, especially through the second and third cantos, we will study. The emphasis being on understanding the Purusha avatars. We should not take it lightly. We should follow in the footsteps of the sages of Naimisharanya. We should follow in the footsteps of Parikshit Maharaj and the great acharyas. And by giving proper oral reception to these verses and these descriptions in the Bhagavatam, there's great realization to be had and benefit to come into our spiritual lives. So I'll stop here. See if anyone has any questions or comments or reflections.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan, Chandra, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It was such a wonderful, purifying class as I was here listening to you. And this morning also I was listening to Chandramali Maharaj. And he kept repeating that we are not reading enough, we are not hearing enough. So I must hear every day. I mean, I never miss a class in the temple. I have to, it's my daily food. I have to hear those morning classes. It's so purifying. And now hearing from you about Bhagavatam, about the Tiradaksha Vishnu, how important it is for us, consider ourselves and purify ourselves. And, thank you very much for your wonderful class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I also heard Chandramoli Swami's class. I also often I'm driving, at least 3 days a week. I try to listen to the class. You just listen to them and you think, oh, Krishna, there's just so much to be learned. And this morning's class, for me, what was so important was Maharaj was explaining how Srila Prabhupada, he gave so much to give us these books. And we should really, really dedicate time to studying. Yeah.
Also very wonderful to hear the very elevated Vaishnava like you, Chandramali Maharaj. It's very, when we hear from you elevated Vaishnavas, it does purify. If I speak, it's not going to purify anybody. But if I hear from the Vaishnava, elevated Vaishnava, it purifies. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
That's your humility, Palika Mataji. Just by hearing your questions and your reflections, I feel purified.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other reflections or questions?
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan, Chandra Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. It was such a wonderful class, as Mataji said. Thank you for that. It was really, really wonderful, very nectarian. So I have a question, Prabhuji. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the various processes of realization, and within which, as you mentioned, Ashtanga and Dhyana Yoga is the process of which to meditate upon the Supersoul, which is sitting within, because that process is focused on realizing the Supersoul and the relationship with the Supersoul. But as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we have our entire focus on realizing the love of Srimati Radharani and her love for Krishna, and therefore we meditate upon Vrindavan Krishna exclusively as our worshipable deity through Radharani. Gaudiyas are focused on Radharani. So is it for us to deviate from Vrindavan Krishna to start meditating upon the Supersoul? Although there's no difference. Of course, there's non-difference to any of these expansions of Krishna. But we have the mood with which we want to meditate upon and focus our entire life and soul on Krishna and Vrindavan. So how do we reconcile the relationship with the Supersoul as opposed to the relationship we're trying to build with the form of Krishna and Vrindavan? Now, of course, there's non-difference. I know that, but you know what I'm saying. It's kind of it's a somewhat esoteric question, but I'm trying to work out: is the process of trying to realize our relationship with the Supersoul becomes more Astanga and Dhyana, as opposed to pure bhakti in the mood of Gaudiyas, or not? Was that a really confusing question? I'm sorry, I probably haven't asked it right.
No, I think I've understood your question, Prabhu, and it is a relevant question. My initial response would be you are quite right. Radha Krishna are the Istadevs for they're the prime objects of worship for the Gaudiyas. But the Gaudiyas, and our appreciation and love for Krishna, we appreciate and we relish all aspects of the Lord's potencies and activities. Although the main focus may be, certain aspects depending on our swarup, it's all of it's relevant, and it's probably more relevant for us in the beginning stages, because Prabhupada is very explicit and clear about it, and he makes his point, quite profoundly in the purport of the first verse of the Bhagavatam, that unless we understand and appreciate these aspects of the Lord, if we try to enter into the, Krishna Lila or Radha Krishna Lila, we are likely to misunderstand. So understanding these aspects of the Lord gives us perspective, and it also gives us appreciation for, how Krishna is fully cognizant, how he interacts with the living entities. It's just like I see it is all one complete package, and everything is interdependent, everything supplements each other. And, we do not, in one sense, play down any aspect at the expense of any others. I'm not sure if I explained it properly, but the point I'm trying to make is, firstly, depending on where we are situated in our spiritual life, it has different relevance, or different degrees of relevance. And our acharyas, and especially Srila Prabhupada, has stressed that for us to enter into Krishna Lila in the best way, this understanding, this aspects of understanding the Lord's Lila and expansions is very much needed, very much needed. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, my question was more less on the understanding. I understand, of course, that we've got to understand the full spectrum of the philosophy in every aspect of Krishna as given to us by the acharyas and in the Bhagavatam. Yes. But the more specific question was kind of along the lines with Sutapa Prabhu's question, that how do we build a relationship with with the super soul within. So if we're focused on building the relationship with the super soul within, don't we fall into the kind of the Astanga Dhyana stage of devotion, as opposed to the pure bhakti and Vaishnava Krishna, Vrindavan Krishna sort of focus. So, you know, if we're trying to build a relationship specifically with our super soul, then we're effectively building a relationship with a formless form of Krishna in our heart. Although he has a form, of course, he has a Mahavishnu form. I know that, but I'm still a little giving you not a clear question. The question Siddhapa Prabhu asked is, how do we go about building our relationship with the super soul? And as Gaudiyas, we are trying to build our relationship with Krishna through Radharani. I know there isn't a difference, but is there a difference in mood that we are in danger of veering away from pure bhakti process if we do?
Yeah. You know, when the answer that came back was no, it should actually enhance you know, that relationship we're trying to, and the bhakti we're trying to deepen. I had one slide which I didn't show, and this is a description of the super soul given by Shukadev Goswami in the Bhagavatam, the second canto. I think it's chapter number 5. And here it is explained in verse number 8. It says, where the Lord resides, his size, and his appearance. And then it goes on to give more description of the super soul. His mouth expresses happiness. His eyes are like lotus petals. His garments are yellowish like saffron or kadamba, bedecked with jewels. Ornaments are made of gold set with jewels. Headdress and earrings glowing. The lotus feet on lotus hearts of mystics. His chest with the Kaustubha jewel. Other jewels on his shoulder. Ornamental wreath about his waist. A ring studded with valuable jewels on his fingers. Leglets, banglets, oiled hair, curling with a bluish tint. Beautiful smiling face. All are pleasing. His pastime smiling glance and shining eyebrows show his mercy. So this is Shukadev Goswami's description of the super soul, or the meditation of the advanced detached yogi in the Bhagavatam. And if we read this description, we see it's very personal, very personal. And, you know, it draws us to the personal feature. And depending on what our swarup is, this could be all. This could be it. And obviously, if one has the seed of Raja Bhakti within one's heart, just like in the story of Gop Kumar in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, then one will have an inclination to other aspects of the Lord's form and lila. But, you know, certainly from this description in the second canto of the Super Soul, so personal, so beautiful, even to the extent of oiled hair curling with a bluish tint, beautiful smiling face, are all pleasing. This is a wonderful description of the Super Soul in the Bhagavatam. This is the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu we're talking about today. So I thank you for reminding me, Prabhu. I wanted to show that slide, but I had forgotten.
Thank you. We managed to squeeze even more nectar out of you today. So thank you, Prabhuji. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu just came into my mind, like this morning also. Maharaj was saying that, you know, about us, you know, not hearing, because so many times we've been told, and Bhagavad Gita saying we are not the body, we are the spirit soul. And how many of us really understand that we are the spirit soul? Are we acting on that understanding of we are not the body, we are the spirit soul? So our hearing has to be so wonderful. Every moment, everything we do, every action we do, we need to not to be attached or not to be disturbed by anything else, because we are the soul, we are not the body. So
Yes.
how many of us, I mean, I am not understand really we are the soul, we are not the body, but we get affected so much. These people say this, these people say body aching, this aching. We're getting constant, we remind we are the body, we are the body, we are acting on body. But if I really understand I'm the soul, nothing should affect me because I'm pure soul. I'm the part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is sitting in my heart. He's a super soul. So only connection I need to have is the soul to super soul all the time. But this super soul realization within me, it will be very difficult because I'm in the body level. So only by worshipping the deity, what Srila Prabhupada has given us, that way from it will come from outside to inside. We'll get, I think I will get purified more by doing daily service to the to the Supreme Person on that form. Then I'll be purified for me to understand, realize, my super soul is there. I'm under. So Krishna will give me that understanding. Then I think that way I'll feel more purified, but not from other way around. This is my little realization.
It's very wonderful. And Prabhupada is making it explicitly clear in the purport that all of this will come by hearing. Hearing means also reading, as Maharaj was explaining. So Maharaj was explaining, and you very nicely put it, reading and hearing coupled with devotional service, practical service, those realizations will come. It will just come automatically. When Maharaj was speaking today, he said something that really, really captured me. He was saying how one day he was reading Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, and he was reading and reading and reading for some time. And Prabhupada says that his purports are his devotional ecstasy. And he said at one point in time, he stopped reading and he was actually hearing Prabhupada's voice.
Yes, I heard
He was hearing Prabhupada's voice. And when he said that, I was thinking, wow, if we can just read so much that Prabhupada's voice will come from the Bhagavatam to us, that would be so amazing. Yeah, thank you for that, Palika Mataji. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or realizations or reflections from anyone? Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, dear devotees, for your kind attention, wonderful questions. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyo Vaishnavebhyo Anantakuri Vaishnava Vrinda ki Prabhupada ki jai. All Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Gaura Premanande.
Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Thank you for wonderful class. Thank you, devotees. Thank you.
Yeah.